Hello, church family. My name's Ashton Silas. I grew up going to church at Central Baptist Hickson, Tennessee back in the 1980s up until the age of 13. At that time, my parents, siblings, and I moved to Jonesboro, Arkansas. But over the years, I followed the things of Central Baptist and followed the things at Abba's house. My grandfather was a deacon at Central Baptist for many, many years. His name was Thurston Goodwin, and my grandmother is Christine Goodwin. Thurston passed away in 1997, but before he passed away, he told me stories about the land that Abba's house is currently sitting on now. I even remember the bowling alley that was there whenever I went to church back in the 80s. We actually had Sunday school classes at the bowling alley right before I left, but a little bit of a story, a little bit of background about that land that I got from my grandfather was very inspiring. He told me a story that basically how he had been friends with the owner of the bowling alley, and they would have coffee together and play checkers together. But the owner, for multiple times, would say he wasn't going to sell the land. One day, my grandfather went to see him and they were having coffee. My grandfather said he'd like to pray with him, but the owner had talked to my grandfather and said, "Hey, I think I'm ready to sell the land. Why don't you talk to Brother Ron Phillips about the land and talk to the committee and see what kind of number you can come back to me with." So my grandfather did that. And so my grandfather had a number that was written down on a piece of paper, and the owner of the land had a number on a piece of paper. At that moment, they switched the numbers, or switched the pieces of paper, and from what my grandfather said, both of the numbers were exactly the same.
This is a miracle of God. Just a few years ago, we were told that we would never be able to possess this property, but God had other plans.
Back on April 11th, I saw a service where Brother Ronnie Phillips was talking about a legacy wall. It just brought me back to the story that my grandfather had shared with me many, many years ago, which was very inspiring to me. Basically, sharing with me the things that it took for the church to get from one point to the other, the sacrifices that were made over the years. I'm thankful that my grandfather had befriended this gentleman over the years to further God's kingdom. It would be an honor for me to provide a brick in honor of my grandfather and grandmother for the things that they did. They paved the way for many people, paved the way for me, paved the way for others that are still there. And then also on top of that, furthering that legacy for future generations.